Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome to the Shrimp Tank Charleston Show. I'm your host, Eric Elkins. The Shrimp Tank is a nationally syndicated podcast that can be heard and watched on YouTube, Google, Apple, and Spotify. You can also tune in and subscribe to our shows on our website. Go to www.doublellc, again, that's DOUBLEELLC.com for past shows, plus great information if you want to learn more about these great CEOs, entrepreneurs, leaders, etc., all around the board. But beyond that, let's jump into this. It's the day after Halloween, 2 days after Tim Kennedy turned 27 years old. And I'm so grateful, first off, to have Tim, you here, because I purposely said to Chase, one of our producers, I said, I want you to call this gentleman and ask him to be on the show because I get to witness your talent, your brilliance in our WestEdge meetings, because we both are in this CEO group called WestEdge. And you are you just have this aura that you might not even realize, but you have this aura of a great leader. Like if I'm going to start a new company, you're going to be on my top 3 list to reach out and say, do you want to be the CEO of my insurance and financial company that I'm starting? So I'm very grateful that you came. But enough about how of a raving fan I am of Tim Kennedy. We're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about Trident Construction and how I see you guys erecting buildings and all kinds of stuff all over at least the Charleston area, and I'm sure you're doing some other things across beyond just Charleston. But first, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored. I am a little bit nervous. This is not in my normal wheelhouse to do something like this. I'm kind of a behind-the-scenes kind of leader, preferably.
Well, don't worry. The only difference is we're just talking with some headphones on. And I just like to hear my voice through the microphone. So I prefer to have all meetings like this. So I carry my whole sound system to any of the meetings. So if we're doing business with Trident, I'll bring the whole sound system with us.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
All right, so let's go back. Let's give it a little audience. So Trident is a construction company. And we're going to get into who is Trident, how is it formed? But I want to start with you, Tim. I always like to know a little background or give the audience a background on who is Tim Kennedy. Where'd you grow up? Were you super rich? Were you super poor? Divorced family? Single? Give me the little background on who is Tim Kennedy.
Oh, sure. So here's a 3-minute introduction on Tim Kennedy. I was born in a little town in South Carolina called Batesburg, South Carolina.
Isn't that Nikki Haley's town?
No, that's Bamberg.
Bamberg.
So my grandfather is from Bamberg. So one grandfather from Batesburg, one from Bamberg, and they're about an hour apart from each other. And my little town of Batesburg is about halfway between Columbia, South Carolina, and Augusta, Georgia. And really about the only reason people go there is for Sheely's barbecue.
That's right. And did you go to Batesburg, Leesville High School?
I did go to Batesburg, Leesville High School, 12 years of public school education in Batesburg. And Batesburg was a great place to grow up with a lot of great folks there.
So your childhood, tell me about your parents. What did they do?
Sure. My dad actually owned a men's clothing store on Main Street in Batesburg, and it's still there today. So
owned by a Kennedy?
No longer by a Kennedy. Owned by a guy named Dan Head. And so Dan started working for my dad when he was 13 years old, and when my father passed away, about 8 years ago, Dan actually took over the store and still runs it today as Kennedy's Men's Store.
Is that like the main place that you went to get?
It's
what kind of
the only place left in Vicksburg to get clothes.
Really?
But it was a men's clothing store. At the end of the day, it would be similar to the M. Dumas of Vicksburg.
So nice, like more on the higher end.
It was on the higher end back in the day. Today, the styles and the clientele have changed a little bit, so it's not quite as nice. But it was floor shine shoes and London fog jackets and Manhattan shirts, and those were the brands of the day.
So growing up, did you work in the store?
I did. I had to start working in the store, cleaning boxes and dusting first, and then waiting on customers and stocking shelves and all those things. And especially at Christmas time, it was always an exciting time because we, worked pretty hard during that time.
Siblings?
Two brothers, two older brothers. Both of them are attorneys, and one still lives in Batesburg, is an attorney in Batesburg. The other one lives in Mount Pleasant and is an attorney down here in Charleston.
And I'm assuming all three of you had to work in the store?
Oh, we did. Absolutely.
So you get probably a good little education on what it's like to deal with consumers and how to treat a client and all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. You better believe it.
Is that the foundation?
It's a great education for learning how to deal with the public, how to deal with people, how to make people happy, how to have a satisfied customer, how not to get upset when things don't go right. And I had some of those lessons as well. So
you go from there. So you grew up in a nice middle class to upper class, whatever you want to call it.
Very middle class, I would say.
Okay. And then you go on to Clemson University.
I did. My dad is a Carolina graduate. That's a deep secret that we don't tell many people.
Is your dad still alive?
No, unfortunately, he passed away about 8 years ago. But my grandfather was a 1915 Clemson grad, and he worked on us his entire life about tigers. And somewhere along about the age of 12, I saw the light and transitioned from being a Gamecock to being a Clemson Tiger.
And did your other brothers go to?
They all went to Clemson as well.
Okay,
and I'm
wow.
the youngest of the brothers. And so my oldest brother started in 76. I started in 82, and my other brother is just a year ahead of me, so he was 81.
Okay. So you just missed the
National championship.
Yeah. Okay. I knew some of the guys that were on that championship team.
Oh, yeah.
The Bacon brothers. Were you in school with the Bacon brothers?
I was not.
And then, well, we're not here to talk about that. All right. And you're not having a great season this year. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But that's okay. You know, this is business. It's ups and downs, and you go through it.
Absolutely.
So school ends.
Yep.
Is there a desire? Does anybody have a desire to come back and take over the store?
No, not really. So that was never in any of our cards.
Why though?
Oh, I don't know. No good reason other than the fact that Batesburg's a small town, and waiting on folks and putting on shoes and things just weren't anything that any of us really wanted to do.
Was your dad upset, or did he not?
I don't think so. I think he wanted the best for us. He wanted us to do what we would be happy and satisfied doing, and that's really, he was happy. He was fine with that.
All right, so you get out of school, and what happens?
Well, I actually was in school and didn't, went to college, and probably like most freshmen in high school or in college, they don't know what they really want to do, right? And so I was in financial management, and I'd always worked for my dad in the summer times and during Christmas seasons and during the week on Saturdays. And he tells me, hey, you got to get a job this summer, and you can't work for me. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I started looking for a job in the spring of that year. And I had two options. One was being a convenience store clerk, and the other one was construction. And so I was like, well, I don't want to work on the weekends, and so I'm going to take the construction job. So I started working for a home builder in Batesburg. Albert Hartley was his name, and he did small commercial but mainly residential stuff. And so I started working for him, and back then, that day, it was really before everybody drove pickup trucks. And so he would drive up in his station wagon. He would get out of the car, and he would tell us what to do. And he'd get back in his car and leave. And I was like, hey, that's the kind of job I want. I want to be able to work inside and outside. I want to be that guy. And so but I always enjoyed construction. I was always the guy who kind of fixed things around the house and took on a project or did a little project, built a stereo cabinet, just other things.
So you're a handyman.
I was always the handyman of the family, I would say. And even in high school. And so anyway, so I saw that and watched him, and I went back to college and started thinking about, well, maybe what I'll do is go to the University of Florida and get my master's in construction because my cousin is from St. Augustine, and that's what he had done. And he had a construction company. And then I'm sitting in a fraternity brother's dorm room one night, and I'm flipping through. Back then, all the majors were in a course catalog. Remember that little book? You know?
Oh, yeah. We didn't. Chase isn't familiar with that, but
No, nobody under 40 would probably be familiar with that. But
there were things called books.
yes,
and
had to flip through them.
no computers.
And so I was flipping through this book, and I saw this major called Building Science and Management. And I was like, I didn't even know Clemson had that. And so went down and visited with the dean and changed my major that semester and started over again in construction science.
All right. So then when you get out, what happens?
Well, I decided I wanted to go to Charleston. My grandfather from my mom's side of the family had an old family place at Folly Beach that I had been to my whole life. And so Charleston felt like kind of my second home, I would say. And I wanted to live at Folly Beach for a couple of years. And so I decided to interview in Charleston. So I interviewed all over the place, but particularly in Charleston, and had two options. One was with Newton Builders, who was a division of Piggly Wiggly at the time, led by a guy named John Quist. And then I also interviewed with a company called Trident Construction, where Robbie Ferry and John David Griffith had started the company. And I didn't really realize it at the time, but they had only been in business for 5 or 6 years. And when I started, so I interviewed with them. Ironically, they were actually both in the same fraternity that I was in. We were both, all three of us were Sigma Nu's at Clemson.
Not when they were.
Not at the same time.
Yeah.
All different times. None of us were actually in college at the same time, but all in the same fraternity. And so it kind of gave us kind of an immediate bond and the connection. And, you know, we were always journeying back to go see the Clemson games together. And so it just kind of worked out.
So you go on. Wow, you've been with Trident since
37 years.
Really?
Yeah.
So
Only
those
job I've ever had, other than a couple of summer jobs working for Stanley Smith and Sons in Columbia.
So when you do that, and how big of a company is it when you started?
Oh, you know, really small. I mean, it felt big to me, but now that I look back at it, I realize we'd only been in business for 5, 6 years. I think this was our 6th year when I joined, and we were doing, I don't know, $30 million worth of work a year, maybe if that much. I'm probably not even sure how much it was.
And what's your main? What were y'all built? What was the main thing? Did you?
Commercial projects. So we were starting to do commercial projects all around Charleston, and we were the up and coming company at that time. We were the young guys who had just started, and so Robbie and John David were working hard to build a name for themselves, and I started right alongside of them trying to do the same thing.
So you start going. Are you married yet?
Got married the year after I got my girlfriend was from college, and so we married the year after I started working.
And do you have 2 wives? You have the girlfriend from college plus your wife now. Is that the way it works?
Luckily I chose well. She's a great woman, and she just stood beside me and supported me. And
let's give her props. I'm just teasing, by the way.
You are.
What's her name?
Her name is Renee Kennedy. Renee Irwin originally.
And are you related to the Kennedy family out of Massachusetts?
Everybody loves to ask me that, especially when I travel international. People want to know that, but unfortunately, we are not.
I would use if my last name was Kennedy, I would go and have someone call in to the best restaurants in New York or wherever I was traveling, and just say, "This is I would need to set up for Tim Kennedy." Tim Kennedy, the Kennedy family. And then I would just bypass all that. I would leverage it left and right.
We went on a cruise ship one time, and we had my mom and dad and my brothers and our whole family, so all the grandkids, everybody, right? So there's 16 of us on this cruise ship. And somehow the rumor goes around the cruise ship that we are the Kennedys from up north, right? And so we got treated royally on that cruise ship. I mean, people came up to us and actually asked us for our autographs and all kind of things. Because on the crew, the rumor went around.
Did you just play it off?
We just played along with it.
I would. I totally would. I totally would. And you know what? It's really going to that's what we're going to promote for your show, is we're just going to say, you want to hear about one of the Kennedys, That's how we'll promote it, so
you go.
people are all over it. You'll be extremely famous. Forget the other Kennedys. Actually, interesting story. I was working out in the Gold's Gym in Mount Pleasant about 2 months ago, and it was early in the morning, and this guy's in jeans and flip-flops and a T-shirt, and I'm in this area of the Gold's Gym in Mount Pleasant where it's just me and this other guy, and I'm like, I know that guy. I need to figure out his name because God forbid he's going to come over. I thought I knew him. Well, it turned out to be, and then all these people kept coming up and shaking his hand, and then I was like, shit, that's a Kennedy. And it was Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the one who's running for president.
Oh, really?
The kind of the radical Democrat kind of guy, or
And so he was working out in Gold's Gym in Mount Pleasant?
yeah, he was doing a town hall that night.
Oh, very
And so
interesting. In flip-flops. I'm surprised they
and
let him
jeans,
in.
and
flip-flops
jeans.
and jeans.
And he's pretty muscular.
Right.
Like he's pretty big. But yeah, you could tell he was like, I just quit bothering. You could tell.
Just let me get my workout
Yeah,
in.
yeah. But okay, enough about that. All right, guys, we're sitting here talking to Tim Kennedy, the CEO of Trident Construction, which is a phenomenal company, and we got to take a quick break. Just so everybody knows, again, you can hear the Shrimp Tank Charleston on a variety of different channels. Plus, you can watch this interview that we're having right now with Tim Kennedy on our YouTube channel. Just type in under the search menu, The Shrimp Tank Charleston, and you can see how handsome Tim Kennedy really is. And so, but we'll be right back.
Attention. Do you own a whole life or universal life insurance policy? Were you told to expect a big tax-free nest egg at retirement, or that dividends will pay for the policy instead of you? Agents frequently sell products like this that are profitable for them, but not for you. Let Double E audit your policy at no cost. Call now to find out how Double E Insurance and Financial Solutions can help you. 843-936-6352. DoubleELLC.com. Securities offered through Fortune Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Elkins Financial, Double E LLC, and Fortune Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities.
Welcome back, guys, to the Shrimp Tank Charleston. I'm your host, Eric Elkins, as well as founder of Double E Insurance Financial Solutions. I personally use the Shrimp Tank Charleston platform to elevate my life, to hear these stories from our clients, and it also helps to kind of help people network and connect interesting people to other folks out there. So to get to, I'll have people who want to say, hey, can you give me Tim Kennedy's number? I want to talk to him. And if I was you, I would. This guy's super humble. He's not going to admit that he's one of the reasons why the Trident has grown as exponentially as it has, but I know that he's a big part of the reason why, which is another great thing about you, Tim, is you're one of the few leaders, CEOs that I meet that I feel like is like a successful, nice guy. Like when you look at a lot of these big, successful companies, unfortunately, I find a lot of the leaders are kind of assholes. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting topic. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was telling me that he was a super nice guy, right? And he said, yeah, I'm kind of a jerk at work. I'm like, man, you don't have to be. They're not mutually exclusive of each other. You can be a good guy after work and a good guy at work.
He owned this company.
He owned the company. Yeah.
But he felt like he has to put on this front.
Evidently he feels like he has to put on this tough act at work, and so by his own admittance, I don't know him from work setting. I only know him from a personal setting. And
you're like shocked because you think
I'm like shocked. Hey, I'm just who I am. After hours is before hours. Same person all the time, 24 hours a day. At least I try to be.
Yeah, I do think there is probably a lot of that. I guess I need to be tough and rough and mean and not give in, because if I give in, then I'm showing weakness.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Think you're weak or something. Yeah, I that's the only thing I can think of. I don't know.
Well, you don't do that, so
Yeah, I try hard not to. We try to just be genuine in who we are all the time.
so when you're working, going back to this career at Trident, the company is growing, and was it for the first? I'm curious, when you first got in there, first 5-10 years, was it pretty much steady growth, extreme growth? What was it like, if you could recall?
Well, when we first started, there were four of us that were kind of, I would say, in the office. Robbie and John David, the two owners, Gene Beckman, who's another guy who actually still lives here in Mount Pleasant, and then myself. And then through the years, we grew slowly. I would say it was steady but slow, and we had a focus of always just trying to do the right thing. And I would say the one thing that Robbie and John David really gifted into me was the concept of no matter what, no matter how hard the choice is, just always do the right thing. And so that's really been the foundation that they laid for me to be able to take over the company with my other partners now, and we just have been able to build on the success of a great foundation that they created.
Was it for you? You're this young, and I feel like when you're in your 20s and 30s, we're just not developed. Brain isn't developed yet, and you have a lack of patience. I'm just curious. Back then, were you like, can we just go? Why can't we try this? Why can't we go after that?
Yeah, I would say more of my stuff from back then was I often look back and wish I could apologize to some folks because I was too aggressive. I was too domineering. I was too, my expectations were too high for people. And so at times I offended some folks. And that was probably my biggest growth in a person, was learning how to control maybe an internal anger or my expectations, and to treat people in a better way.
When did that change?
Oh, I wish I could say it was a switch, but it was something that evolved in me over probably a 20-year period.
Did you have those guys, the owners, say to you, hey, you need to chill out a little bit?
I remember in particular, I had a roofer who was doing a terrible job, and the bonding company had to come in. And the bonding company sent in a representative, and the bonding representative was this really nice elderly man. He was probably 70. And I was short with him, and he looked at me one day and he was like, man, you have got to change, or you are never going to make it in this world.
Really?
And I was like a little bit incensed. I was like, wait a minute, it's your company that you represent, the roofing, he's a bonding company, but the roofer who's not doing the job, I'm just trying to get the job done for my owner, so I just had this real sense of pride for my owner and trying to do the right thing. But I was just approaching people the wrong way. I was going about it the wrong way.
I totally 100% relate. Like I remember times where our CFO in our previous company, our CFO would be like, you need to chill it out. And I was like, I don't need you to tell me. Yeah. I just remember, and then I remember so many employees would say, I hated you. You were so arrogant. You were so just didn't give a shit about, you just were, I can relate to some of this stuff and how they would go, and you just have to get past that side of you. And I was like, God, I don't even, and I was kind of immune, like I didn't really realize it.
Yeah, I was not self-aware at all.
I thought I was, but I wasn't.
Right, I was at the time. I thought I was too.
Yeah,
but
I was nice to my wife when I came home.
I was too. I think wasn't I, honey?
Yeah, Renee's like, actually, let me talk about that for a minute. That's for episode 2 continued. All right, so the company's slowly growing, and then when do you move into an executive position?
So about 10 years in. So I've been working there about 10 years, and I actually have decided that I am going to start another construction company with a local friend of mine. and we were going to venture off, and we went off and took our contractor's license, and I came back after passing and went to tell the news, and they were like, oh, wow, we really don't want you to leave. And so they basically talked me into staying and sold me a third of the company, and that's kind of what got me to stay.
So where were you in that point of your life that you were, because I think this is interesting. We were talking to Chase about things, on transparency and stuff. At that time, obviously, you're like, if you were super happy at Trident, you're not even thinking about starting your own company.
I was super happy, and Robbie and John David were fantastic to work for and work with. However, there's always been an entrepreneurial bend inside of me, right? And so there's always something about going off and doing your own thing, starting your own thing. And so I came with the intent of moving to Charleston, staying for 5 years, going back to Lexington and opening my own business. But then I got to Charleston and I realized, Charleston's a way better place than the middle part of the state. Nothing bad about the middle part of the state, but Charleston's just better.
It's okay. I'm from Columbia.
That's right. And Columbia is a great spot, but Charleston's just better spot to live, and fell in love with it and didn't want to leave. And so, but still had my dream of starting my own business. And they talked me out of it, and I'm very glad that they did. And it was for two reasons, really. They gave me a great opportunity to join them as partners. But the other part of it was I had a young family, and I realized that if I left and started my own business, the business would drain me of all of my energy, and I wouldn't have the energy to put into my family. And so with Trident, of course, I'm surrounded by great folks. And so I'm able to leave to go on vacation for a week and realize everything's going to be covered. And I knew that if I started my own business, I would probably end up never leaving to go on vacation and never taking time off and missing all the basketball games. And that was a big part of the reason.
How many kids?
3 kids.
How old?
Today I'm probably going to get this wrong, 30, 27, and 22, I believe. I think that's right.
All right. So you had them when you were 13 and 15 and 20 or whatever. Okay. So you end up so when they offer you the equity to buy into the company at a third, how did they structure that?
It was a bonus plan that we developed that I was going to buy in through over time, through basically, the success of the projects that I ran, and then I would use some of those funds to buy in.
Okay, so instead of you getting hypothetically $1 in bonus, I'm making this up. Instead of you getting that $1 in your hands, you were giving back 80 cents on the dollar. You were keeping 20 to live, and then you were like they were kind of paying. You weren't actually having to go get a loan from the bank, is where I'm going.
Well,
at that time,
it was a combination of things, right? So some of it was cash that I had saved up that I actually put into the business. So that was the down deposit.
Got it.
And the other part was continuing success in the business that allowed me to reinvest into it.
When you got that opportunity to buy in, was your perception of owning a business totally different? Or did you have enough kind of background that those guys had already kind of shown you what it's like to you're now involved in this loan that we're involved in, and you're involved in this salary increase that we have to do.
Kind of like we talked about earlier. I thought I knew, but I didn't really know.
And so you're like, what do you mean we're paying this much in electric bills and all this?
What do you mean I have to sign on this indemnity agreement with bonding company?
And if we fail, I've lost everything in my life.
Yep.
I feel like a lot of times, and I know you're a big fan of the transparency piece, where employees and a lot of owners, partners just have a tendency, they feel like they can't share this stuff with the employees, whereas I don't agree with that, because they come up with their own narrative, And then the employee is like, "God, we did $100 million in revenue this year, and you made $99 million."
Yeah.
And they don't really, just like I didn't really know until you go through it what it's like.
Absolutely. And so, we try to be very transparent today with our team members so that they understand what mutual success looks like. And we have a company meeting every year where we kind of go through, our success, how we did, and what's the future looking like, and where are we going to go. And, we're trying to make sure we bring in everybody along with us as we go.
So when you buy in, what year is that roughly?
Oh, that's roughly, let's see, 1990, something, 89, 1990. Well, no, I'm sorry, 97, 98.
Okay, so when does it go when these guys say I'm getting out? What transpires there?
That's the next evolution, and so we go along the way to about year 20, I guess now, and we decide that we have two more partners we want to bring into the business, Chappie McKay and Todd Bullwinkle.
I know Chappie. I don't know Todd, but I do know Chappie.
And so Todd's a Mount Pleasant guy as well. And Chappie's, of course, downtown Charleston. And so they come into the business. And so the three of us now collectively buy out the remaining ownership of Robbie and John Baby.
Those guys they're ready to say, hey, I'm ready to get out of here.
They're starting to get there. That's right. And of course, then the Great Recession happens. And so, as you talk about, you never know. Plans have to change, and you create a plan and you try to live by it, but then you have to adapt. And so the Great Recession happened, and of course we go into, construction's always a lagging indicator, and construction's always so very cyclical. And so lots of the highs are high, the lows are low, and so we went into a very low period. And so our buy-in got extended.
So prior to the recession, is the company
we're doing well, so we're doing well. And so before the recession, we had grown to be about $80 to $100 million a year, which was big for us at the time.
I still think it's big.
Well, yeah, this year will be about $270 million.
Wow.
So, significant from there. But when the recession hit, we dropped back down into the 50s. And so we were back down to the 50s. So about a 50% drop in revenue during the recession.
And when that happens, are you making the layoffs and stuff like that?
We were super fortunate. We didn't really lay off anybody. We doubled up folks. We found things for them to do. We reshuffled the deck around. Some folks left just out of attrition. We weren't hiring anybody, so nobody new joined us, but we kind of got through it really with our team intact, because Charleston would recover, and typically Charleston recovers quicker than the rest of the country, and that proved to be the case again.
Did the original guys did they kind of take the look of, okay, maybe we'll sell in-house, or maybe we'll see if there's any out there outside the market?
We never talked about outside the market, so I don't know if they had that discussion. I was never part of that.
And because construction's kind of not the easiest acquisition type of organization.
It's not, because really you're buying people, and so there's not a lot of other factors that you're buying. You're buying relationships and people in construction.
Your business today, I know, is you do a lot of basically commercial business, but is it still predominantly in the low country, or are you spread out?
No, we mainly focus on the low country of South Carolina.
Which is amazing how much revenue you're doing.
Well, it's we've tried to be very focused on what we do, who we work for. Most of our business is in a negotiated format. About 90% of it's negotiated, and about 90% of our business are for repeat customers. And so we have a tendency to rebuild for customers over and over and over again. And we believe it's because we do a great job for them, and they've learned the value of working with us, and they enjoy working with us, and the experience that they receive by working with us. And so that next building comes around.
Well,
and
I want to give you props, because every time you go into downtown Charleston, well, one, we have listeners throughout the world. I told you we're huge in North Korea right now. But beside that, if you're in town and you're in Charleston, you see the Trident construction sign all over the place. But one of the buildings that you guys did is on 17. My wife just said it to me. She's like, "What hotel is that right there?" I'm like, "It's not a hotel. It's the senior living place."
Senior living facility.
It's amazing that you built a senior living that truly looks like a hotel. Like, I want to go stay in that senior living.
Well, that's credits to the to great architecture, which was done by MPS and the local firm here. And unfortunately, we don't really design them. We just build what the architects work.
Well, hats off to all of y'all, MPS, Trident, and is it what is it called? Kempton? What's it?
Kempton is the name of the project now.
Listen, I'm going to live at the Kempton later because I told my wife, no, it's not. I know it looks like a hotel, but it's not.
Well, the team that pulled that off, I mean, that intersection, if you're from Charleston, that's probably the busiest stretch in all of Charleston, right? And we had very limited access, and so they pulled that off quite well and orchestrated, finished it early and about a month early, and it does look great.
Yeah, and you did a great job on the Charleston ENT building right over here.
Thank you.
That was like changing like an hour. It was really
Charleston
quick.
ENT has been one of our repeat customers for many years.
Yeah. So would you say this niche of, hey, let's not go out and have a branch or office in Raleigh, North Carolina, and in Charlotte, and blah blah blah. Just this niche of, again, your focus on the Low Country would be a reason why you guys have been so successful?
I'm sure that's part of it. We know all the local players, all the local officials. We know how to navigate the waters. Charleston's not an easy place to build in, and so we kind of know how to work through the channels and the things to get things done. And I think one of my favorite quotes that someone gave me one time, they were saying they had moved here to town, and they'd said, when I moved here 10 years ago, we just kind of knew Trident as this construction company over here. He goes, but now I know you guys as the guys who can get things done in this town.
That's your mission statement.
Yeah,
right? What is your mission statement?
Building trust and adding value to everything we do. And so we try to orchestrate everything on trust and then add value as we go along the way.
And if you met Tim once, you just trust the guy, and which I think probably a lot of employees have that feeling about you.
Well, we're very focused on our team members, and we like to recruit, and we always have the mantra that we're always looking for great team members, and we are. And we do. And when we find those great team members, we want to bring them on, and then we'll build work around those folks. There was a great book that we read years ago called Good to Great. I'm sure you remember that book. And it was about finding the right people and putting them on the right seat on the bus. And so frequently we will interview for a superintendent, and we'll go, oh, we don't really need this superintendent today, but he's got everything we're looking for. And so when you can find someone who has those things, we'll bring that guy on, and then we'll build business around that guy, because Charleston is a dynamic market, and we are also, especially, things are slowing down a little bit now, but in the past 3 or 4 years, the market has been growing so rapidly that you had the temptation to take on more work than what you could actually handle. And so another promise to our team members and to our customers is that we would not outkick our coverage. And so we would not take on projects without the right teams to handle those. So we turned down many opportunities that we could have grown the business even more so, but we just didn't feel like we could do it and have the right team in place.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, I want you to tell me one of the things that you guys did or implemented that you feel like we thought it was a great idea and it ended up sucking.
Okay.
All right. Guys, you're listening to the Shrimp Tank Charleston. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
If you're like most successful business executives, you would probably rather stick your arm in a bucket of snakes than formulate a strategy for your insurance and financial needs. Who even understands estate planning, 401k plans, or key man insurance? We do. We are Double E, your virtual Chief Insurance and Financial Officer. Let us free you up to do more of what you do best and less of what we do better. Call 843-936-6352. EELLC.com. Securities offered through Fortune Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Elkins Financial EE LLC and Fortune Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into the Shrimp Tank Charleston Show. I'm your host, Eric Elkins. We've been sitting here talking to Tim Kennedy, CEO of Trident Construction in the EE studios today. Again, if you prefer to watch these interviews, please go to our YouTube channel and type under search menu, The Shrimp Tank Charleston. 3 words, The Shrimp Tank Charleston. Or you can watch or listen to these interviews and go to our website at www.double add another EELLC.com, and you can hear and see all that stuff there. So, Tim, before we went to break, I asked you if there was something that you thought you guys implemented or try you know, some kind of segment that you want to do inside your business, and it turned out to be kind of a dud. Or you're all just perfect.
Well, no, nobody's perfect by any means, and we certainly aren't. I would say one example that we did a joint venture on a project, and we won't talk about the project specifically, but we did a joint venture on a project, and it just didn't work out very successfully. And part of the reason is when you're in a joint venture, and especially if it's a larger project and you're a minority team member, you have really very little say-so. You become the tail on the dog. Mm-hmm. And so we had an unpleasant experience, and we believe our customer had an unpleasant experience. And so we made a decision after that we would never do that again, that we are going to only do projects where we're in control because we can ensure that our customers receive the experience we want them to get.
And was that just taken because it was like a big... it looked like it was a big opportunity.
At the time, it seemed like the right opportunity. But looking back at it, we realized it probably was not.
All right. So when we talk about Trident and how historically you guys have just been very balanced, steady, strong growth to almost a $300 million construction company focused on a specific area, again, I think is hats off for being able to do that. If you were to talk to not only this audience, but to anybody, and I said to you, okay, what do you think are the 3 things that really have made Trident who they are and who you are today?
Well, I would really say there are 2 things. And one is very straightforward. Take care of your customers. And so, all this stuff we can talk about today, and we can talk more about specifics on other things, but just a general concept of your customers come first, take care of them first. And, we lose a lot of, we'll call them battles along the way, because we ultimately want to win the war of a repeat customer. And so sometimes we probably do more than we have to, or we choose not to argue about something, or we just take care of an issue of a problem to take care of that customer. The second thing that I would say is take care of your people. And so when we take care of our people take care of our customers. And so when we do those 2 things right, and I should also say that our people, in this particular case for our industry, are our subcontractors. And so we are the contractor who's going to put our arm around our subcontractor and help them to the finish line. We're not the guys who are going to pull out a paper contract and try to beat them over the head with it. And so we want mutual success. We want them to be successful along with our success. And
it's so simple, but it's so powerful what you're saying. And because I think in today's world, when you look at social media and all this stuff, all the stuff that's out there, you're supposed to read 19 books before 7 a.m. and you're supposed to take an ice plunge, and then you're supposed to run 19 miles and then go work out and then read 19 books and then then you're supposed to go to work.
Right.
You're supposed to, and then they're like, and then after that, you still got to outwork everybody and you have to do all this stuff. And I feel like, don't get me wrong, some of this stuff is great, but it's like, it's not real.
Well, that is true, and I do believe in a growth mindset. So I am a big one on listening to books and trying to always get better, right? And I look back at the Tim Kennedy that I knew 30 years ago, or that other people knew 30 years ago, and they would say, that's not the same guy he is today. And I tried to do the same thing with all of our folks. So we have a growth mindset at Trident. We're always trying to make every individual person on our team a little bit better next year. And when we can improve, there's 130 of us now. And so when we improve each one of us a little bit, and we look back 5 years, we go, oh, wow, we have really made a big difference now.
Well, give me an example. What does that mean when you're trying to help these guys? Like, I know we talked about the book, and both of us were fans of the book, The Growth Mindset. But and you and I were reading that, but when you're trying to get employees to do some of this stuff or instill some of this, give me an example of what you're doing as an organization.
Sure. So, for those of you who have not read the book, there's kind of two mindsets with most folks. This actually comes from a book called Mindset by Carol DeWitt. And so fixed mindset, which is what I used to be, which is basically you see the world as fixed, you see people as fixed. That person who's never going to be any different 5 years from now or 10 years from now, their lot in life is the same. And then growth mindset people are people who go, no, with the right mentors, the right influence, the right training, that person will get better. And you can apply that to anything, to anyone, even yourself. And so just a quick personal story on that side. I decided, because I read the book, someone invited me to go shoot sporting clays, and I had never shot sporting clays. And so the first time I went, I hit one clay. Now, if you've ever been, that's terrible. That's absolutely horrific.
Especially from Bates, Leesburg.
Absolutely,
Leesburg.
yes. Living in the country and growing up bird hunting and stuff. I hit one clay. And so, but I just read that book and I was like, you know what? A growth mindset, if I practice at this, I can get better. And so through a help of a friend and then a help of a coach who gave me a couple of lessons and some practice, I just shot last weekend and I hit 81 out of 100 clays.
Really?
So, anyway,
was the first time 1 out of 100?
One out of, well, we weren't keeping score, but yeah, it was probably 1 out of 100.
That is awful.
And
I got to be honest. I don't even think I would try again.
I know. And I would say in the past, I probably just would have said, oh, that's not for me, and gone on. But I had really literally just read that book and I was like, nope, I can do this. And a friend who coached me along the way as well. So, and that was over about a 2-year period. But anyway, on a business level, one of my favorite stories I love to tell is, the business of construction, especially our craft workers who work in the field for us. Many times they are a career of second and third chances, right? And so many times they have had addiction issues, they've been on drugs or alcohol, or some of them have been to prison, or maybe they've just had a rough upbringing, or maybe they've just migrated here from another country. And so oftentimes, we're that entry level position. And so when we can identify those people who have what it takes to move on to the next level, we'd love to invest in those guys. And so one in particular, which is an easy story to tell, with his permission, he was addicted. He was on crack, basically. And he kind of reached his bottom and decided, well, I got to get a job. And so he started working for us as a construction laborer through a temporary labor agency. And he was just basically a cleanup guy. But he was on it. And you could see something in him that was just a little more, right? He was always showing up for work. He did what he needed to do. He was there early. And then we finished that project, and the next project was in North Charleston, and the guy didn't even have a driver's license or a car, so he's on a moped. And so for another year, he drove from downtown Charleston, where he lived, all the way to North Charleston every day was on the job site at 6:45 every morning, rain, snow, no matter what, he showed up. And so today, fast forward, he's owns a house now. He first thing, he got a car, and then he got a truck, then he bought a house, then he has a girlfriend, and now he's an assistant superintendent for us.
Really?
And so a guy who's come all the way from basically coming off of a drug addiction all the way to now, being a valuable member of our community and our society, and a great team member for Trident Construction.
And I'd be curious how, one, just being able to stop and kick the addiction.
Well, that's to him, right? He had to reach that rock bottom, which he did, and then he drug himself out of that hole he was in. All we did was give him the opportunities and saw something in him that allowed him those opportunities to grow.
Yeah, that's a great story.
And, he's a rough, at the time, his teeth were messed up from his drug addiction. He had tattoos all over his arm. He's kind of rough looking, right? And but we still saw the better side of him and the other side of him, and he showed it to us as well. And so we just gave him those opportunities to continue to grow, and he continues to grow with us today.
But you also knew beforehand, when he was in the temp organization, you knew that he was a previous crackhead and all that kind of crack addiction.
We don't, when they come from the temp agency, a lot of times, we get new folks. Oh golly, sometimes they'll be every day, right? Because the ones they showed don't show back up, or they don't work out, or they won't work hard, or whatever it is. But this guy just proved himself to be different, and that's all credits to him.
Yeah, that's a great story. All right, let me ask you this, and then we're going to wrap it up. Tell me, we're moving in the future. It's 5 years from now. What does Tim Kennedy look like 5 years from now, as well as what does Trident Construction look like?
Well, I think Trident Construction just looks like, hopefully Tim just looks like a better version of the person you see today. And so, I need to give, obviously my faith walk has been a big part of my transformation as well. About that time that I realized that I was not treating people well, I was also learning to have a faith in God. And I started by having to call people up and apologizing for when I lost my temper with them. And so now I hardly ever lose my temper. It's been a long, long time since I've done that. And so that's been a big part of it. And I just hope that people over the next 5 years will continue to see that evolution of Tim. I hope they will also see the evolution of Trident Construction. Our focus today is on creating raving fans. And so we try to create raving fans out of everyone we encounter. And so what I mean by that is, naturally, our customers are our first person that we want to create a raving fan with. We want them to say, oh yeah, Trident is the best thing. Much like you did at the introduction of this show, which we greatly appreciate. You aren't a customer from ours, but yet you kind of say the words of what a raving fan would say. And so we compare ourselves oftentimes, or I compare ourselves oftentimes to Chick-fil-A. And so, you look at Chick-fil-A and you'd say, well, what does a fast food restaurant and a construction company have in common? And the way we see it is Chick-fil-A. Are you a Chick-fil-A fan, Eric?
I love it. I love the model. Of course, I know, obviously Scott Wozniak, and I know he's part of helps with your organization.
Yes.
It's an incredible story. I don't know. We just had this conversation the other day, Chase and I, in the sense of, if you see 50 million cars in line at a Chick-fil-A, you get in line. You're like, I'm fine with that.
Right.
Because it'll go.
It will go.
But you'll pass if that's a McDonald's or any other fast food.
And so you could quickly look and say, a chicken sandwich is a commodity. Every fast food restaurant has it, right? And so mine is no different than yours, is no different than yours. But Chick-fil-A changed that narrative by creating a better experience for their customers. And the experience is better because the drive-through moves rapidly. The order is correct. The food is hot. My pleasure. People are nice. The restrooms are clean, right? All the things that make Chick-fil-A different than other fast food restaurants. And so our focus today at Trident Construction is being a construction company that is different from all the other construction companies. And so we want our customers to have a better experience at Trident Construction than they would with another construction company. And so by doing so, we create that raving fan who in turn tells someone else that they should use us, who in turn tells someone else, and then we do repeat business, and that's really been the catalyst of our success.
Well, and I think you have achieved that, because which is why I wanted you on the show. Is Trident is a different construction company in a good way, and if you're ever even considering between this construction company and Trident, and you're listening to this episode, you guys are real. Like, this is super. This isn't a facade. This is I really do think Trident is just that special organization, which is why I wanted you on the show to talk about it. All right, so I think go ahead.
I'll just finish real quick. We take that model and we try to use it with everyone we encounter, right? So our customers normally are our first choice, right? But then we also try to do it with our team members. And so we want the superintendents to be a raving fan of their project manager, and the project manager to be a raving fan of the superintendent, and the receptionist, so that everyone you encounter. And then we take it even further with our subcontractors. We want them to be raving fans. And, I often use the analogy of, there's a guy who has to show up who cleans the porta potties for us on the job site. And it's a pretty crappy job, no pun intended, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty bad job. And so if we can do something for that individual to make his day slightly better, maybe it's give him a bottle of water, or maybe it's just, we know he shows up on Thursday mornings at 9:00. So we just make sure that his access is clear.
Give him a Chick-fil-A breakfast.
Give him a Chick-fil-A coupon, right? Whatever it is, just to make his day a little bit better. And so we just try to be that company and that person. And one of my favorite things is when one of our guys pulls over and helps a motorist in distress, and then we get an email from a lady who said, one of your guys pulled over and helped change my tire, and that's what we want our guys to do.
That's great, man. Trident is you guys have a recipe, and I don't see it stopping, and congrats on what you've accomplished as a company thus far, which you've accomplished in your growth personally and professionally, and it's great that you're self-aware that you even can go back and see how you were. And not many people, including myself, ever go back and try to make amends and apologize for some things.
Yeah.
Like when you say that, it makes me go, shit, I should get on the phone and apologize.
Well, I have apologized to many people, but I'm sure there are more that I've missed that I need to go back.
Yeah,
and
they're
get.
listening right now going, he never called me. Hey, don't worry. He's going to reach out to you over the next 5 years. That's what he talked about. All right, guys, great show today. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Tim. Please check out our previous episodes on the various podcast channels and follow the show. If we'd love to have more and more followers. If you are a visual person, again, please watch the interviews on our YouTube channel. Please connect with me. I'd love to know more about you. I get 90% good feedback from listeners, and 10%. I find it kind of humorous how mean they are to me, and they tell me I shouldn't talk at all during these episodes. And then I go, well, what am I supposed to, how do they talk if I don't ask them questions? But maybe I'm not, maybe I'm in a fixed mindset. I should just shut up and say, okay, Tim, talk. You got an hour. All right. You can go to our Instagram page. Handle is _E_LLC. Or type in The Shrimp Tank Charleston, or type in Eric Elkins, ELKINS. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, all that stuff. If you or your company would like to have yourself or someone else put their name in the hat to be a guest on the show, please contact one of our producers. And for this show, I'm going to say Chase Cooper at service@EELLC.com, or go to the Double E website, www.EELLC.com, and you can reach out and go to the podcast tab and reach out and talk to us there to see if maybe you know of someone like a Tim Kennedy that we should be talking to, or maybe that's you and you want to talk about how special you are. Let's hear it. I want to hear your story. Lastly, and this is the last thing I will say, my name is Eric Elkins, and I recommend focusing on being a 1%er. Tim, do you know what a 1%er is?
The people who give just a little bit more.
Well, it's not bad. Better the answer. At least you did better than most people. It's someone that does what 99% of people won't do. It's kind of like what a lot of the Trident team does. It's not that hard. Take care of your customers, listen to your customers, and take care of your people. And if you want something in life, your boss or whoever is not a mind reader. So you got to go get it. You got to go get it or ask for it or bring it up. All right, guys. Great show, Tim. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome to the Shrimp Tank Charleston Show. I'm your host, Eric Elkins, but in real life, I'm an entrepreneur and founder of Double E Insurance and Financial Solutions. Double E helps individuals and companies navigate through their financial insurance portfolios. Double E provides clients an entertaining and unique experience. The Shrimp Tank Charleston Show allows us the opportunity to interview and learn from the brightest entrepreneurs and leaders around. We dive into their journey and discover what drove them to become so successful. We will make sure we get out of them not only the wins, but also the losses that they have had on their journey. We are a nationally syndicated podcast that can be heard and watched on YouTube, Google, Apple, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also tune in and subscribe to our shows on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com/Charleston, or check us out on the Double E website, double ELLC.com.